Hey, good evening, guys. It is May 27th, 2026. It is Wednesday. This is Odd One Out. Welcome to the show. If you could please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It helps the channel grow. On the way home from work, I was kind of thinking about some ideas that I would do for the show tonight. Hello, Simon. Well, I'm always saying this every video. You might hear my kitty cat or my doggy in the background. And I should actually say I was already bouncing around topics that I was going to think about, but talk about tonight. But on the way home, as I was just kind of listening to podcasts about what's going on, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, I could talk about so many different topics. So I thought, I'm just going to kind of spitball this video. I'm going to talk about things that you have to believe right now if you're MAGA, or things you support, or just know that these are the things that your side currently champions. And, for those watching this video that are MAGA, I hope that if this is some of the things I mentioned you hadn't heard before, you look into, you can fact check me. You should fact check me, and you find them to be true. And it makes you kind of critically think about what you support. This is a fight of good versus evil, and I genuinely believe that MAGA is evil. That doesn't mean you have to jump left, but I just want to run down, just some things. Like, this is all off the dome. I don't have a research to go off of tonight. So let's just get it started. So a lot of people my age, especially, I'm 31. I'm approaching middle age. I'm getting close to it. I'm not quite, but I'm not crazy far away from being middle aged. And a lot of people are like me and probably didn't even think about politics that much until after college. I would say that the bigger percentage maybe came around to politics 5 years ago during COVID, 6 years ago now. If you've been into politics longer than that and you've been interested in it longer than that, then I think that's awesome that you have been interested in something that affects all of our lives for all your life, even some people. But I just think the mainstream person my age, hasn't really necessarily been that deep into politics until this super heated, completely divided country that we live in, which, whether for better or for worse, if you're MAGA, that's, your perspective is for better or for worse, is when Trump got into town. I've heard some right-wingers try to point at Obama being the one that made everything divisive, but I don't even take that seriously anymore at this point, especially whenever Donald Trump calls the entire left the radical vermin, the enemy from within. I just don't even need to go off on how just blatantly false it is that Obama could be as divisive or even close as Trump is. And so, again, if you're like me, you're 31, there's not been a single good Republican president in your life. Not one. Not even Trump one, who rode on the coattails of Obama. He's, He had a bunch of experts that he installed around him, which credit him for that, which is totally different from this term. Experts that knew what they were doing for the most part and were well respected and would say, no, sir, you can't shoot protesters in the leg. That was a real thing that he wanted to do. No, sir, you lost the election. I'm going to have to certify this, and you lost. I'm sorry. Those kind of experts. So, in his first term, he was, against his own will, held in check, rode on Obama's coattails, still had awful foreign policy, still caused so much instability, and above all else, completely destroyed how people, they don't trust the media anymore. You can't trust, and you don't trust institutions. There is no shared reality. There is no objective facts. Just completely destroyed everything already in his first term. And like I said, there's never been a good Republican president, just in my lifetime. I know I've only had two, 3 separate kind of terms. Bush had all 8 years combined, running back and forth, and was, he's well liked, but an awful president, terrible, one of the worst presidents we've had. Horrible for the economy. Got us into, I think it was like an $8 trillion series of forever wars. My little kitty wants to go outside, but there's bobcats out here, so we don't let him out at night. But funny guy, likable personality, awful president. And every Republican agrees with that now, especially because they think that politicians like him on the right wing are rhinos and aren't actually real Republicans. And, so, and then, like I said, Donald Trump, just awful. So, I know there's only like 2 of Donald Trump's split terms and then 1 long 8 years of Bush to choose from. So, not like a whole handful of presidents for me at 31, but it's just, I've seen nothing but trash. And Clinton was a total piece, but he's the last one to balance the budget. The economy did great. Obama, objectively a fantastic president. I really don't care for anybody that thinks he's not. Like, anybody that thinks Obama was a bad president and Trump is a good president, like, I'm sorry, but your opinion isn't valid, like, on anything. I don't think you need to be taken seriously as a person. It's not even a Democrat and Republican thing. That's just the United States of America and just measuring statistics kind of thing. And a morality thing, even. But, never had a good Republican president. And then especially with the Republican Party has turned into MAGA. And this guy on the campaign trail talked about Arnold Palmer's schlong. He talked about Kamala Harris getting in the boxing ring with Mike Tyson. He talked about daycare is daycare. He talked about mass deportations now. He talked about the immigrants, which were legal immigrants, documented immigrants in Springfield. Those Haitian immigrants were eating cats and dogs. I don't even know where to begin. And talked about the left are the enemy from within that should be handled by the military. And people, 77 million people, many of my friends, went to the polling booth and voted for that. And pointed at Kamala Harris and said, oh, she gives word salad answers. Something about a coconut tree, something about being unburdened, something about she just wasn't a great interviewer. And this is also following E. Jean Carroll, the case where 12 jurors looked at all the evidence presented to them and said, oh yeah, no, you raped her. You're past the statute of limitations. This isn't a criminal court, but you raped her. And the judge ordered that he pay $81 million. And the judge said, in the common layman's terms, what you would just say amongst your friends or, outside of the courtroom because it's past the statute of limitations, he raped her. So, all that, and 27 accusers of rape, cheated on all his wives, cheated on his wife that just had a baby with a porn star. I have no words. The moral depravity. I have plenty of issues with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, but it's like, I don't even know. I was even telling a buddy one time, it's like, I can't stand Nancy Pelosi. I can't stand her. And she's so corrupt and has done like $400 some odd million of insider trading. Terrible, horrible politician. Trump makes her look like an angel. Man, he really wants to go outside. $3 billion off the office last year. 3,600 stock trades in the first quarter of this year alone, averaging like 60 per day. And inside, like buying stock and then saying, you should buy this stock, you should buy Dell. Going and visiting and putting the stock ticker in his messages. Saying that we sent $50 million in condoms to Gaza. Just the constant lies that we were performing transgender surgery on mice. That he depicted himself as Jesus Christ and threatened to kill an entire civilization. And he pardoned all of the insurrectionists, including all those who beat cops. And then, he decided, I'm going to give you $1.776 billion, a slush fund, for fighting for me, for fighting cops for me. And the right wing, they believe that James Tallarico is the evil one, and Ken Paxton, who, let walk free many, many pedophiles. One of them, one of his friends, who was raping his son's best friend for 3 years and was sentenced to life in jail without the possibility of parole. he changed his sentence to 60 days and let him walk in 30 days. And, so you got Ken Paxton just dominating the Senate race, the Senate primary against Cornyn. And you got Ed Gallerine winning against Thomas Massie when nobody's ever heard of him. And the reason why he got voted out is because Thomas Massie wanted to bring justice to the victims. Like I said, I'm 31 years old. I can only view the world through my lens. I can empathize with others. That's another thing the right wing can't grasp, is seeing things through other people's eyes and their shoes. But anyways, I feel like, it's as if the people that are adults now never actually grew up. Nothing is serious. Nothing matters. Nobody cares that we're watching the world burn in front of us. Nobody cares that we have an adjudicated rapist who is hiding millions of Epstein files and are just so thoroughly redacted, the abusers and co-conspirators, that he had files of himself come out that as soon as the DOJ discovered that, they pulled them back. He spent I forget, $800 million or something crazy, some crazy amount of money on overtime hours and just the redactions project. He signed 1,000, man, he's serious. Assigned 1,000 FBI agents to redact the files, and it wasn't redacting the victims. We're 6 months past the due date, and by law, he was supposed to release them back on December 19th, 2025. We're beyond 6 months. And they were supposed to explain all the redactions. It's such a moral failure of our nation. Okay, you don't have to like left-wing politicians. I don't like a lot of them. But, I just don't understand. And I'm kind of in a defeated tone because I do feel kind of defeated and bewildered. I think that Tallarico is going to mop the floor with Paxton. He is in so many of the polls. And I just know that Greg Abbott, the same guy that tried to remove Tallarico and other Democrats from the Congress for opposing the gerrymandering maps, he tried to just remove them. And the Republican Supreme Court in Texas said, this is ridiculous and unconstitutional. You can't do that. A far-right Texas Supreme Court said that. So I don't have any hope in Abbott or so many of these right-wing terrorists that are going to take an election fair and square. I mean, in 2020, Trump tried to steal the election and gaslit all of his followers and supporters and said that they stole it from him. And he tried to install fake electors, the fake elector scheme, the greatest scandal in American history. They're going to do it again. And it doesn't seem like anybody cares. Republicans don't care. And I don't think that how can you be good faith? How can you actually be a serious person? You want better for the country. You want better for your kids. You want better for your friends. How can you be a serious person and watch everything that's happening in front of you and claim that you like democracy and freedom as you re-elect the guy who tried to steal the election and overthrow democracy? We don't even share reality anymore. And it's really difficult. I don't really have any faith in the upcoming midterms. Not that the Democrats won't shatter the Republicans, they will. But I don't think the elections are going to be free and fair. I didn't complain about the 2024 election. I didn't complain about the 2022 midterms. I accept reality. I don't think Republicans do. I don't think MAGA does. And I don't think that I think that MAGA would rather see their kids' futures burn if it means owning the libs. And I don't think it's a shared reality that we're living in, so I don't know what you're doing if you're a Republican still. Like I said, it doesn't mean you have to join the left, become a AOC supporter. I don't even plead with MAGA I don't plead with anybody watching this video that's MAGA to change, because you're not. If you still support Trump in May 2026, you don't. I don't have any hope for you. So, I appreciate y'all tuning in. Thank you so much. Sorry for being all over the place. I just kind of had to spew my brain guts all over the wall over here. And I don't know, man. If you're leftist out there, we got to fight, dude. I don't have much hope, though. I'm not going to lie. So, until the next video, odd one out.